All right, I'm back. I'm leaning back for a second just so you can see my smiley face tie. I'm recording this just before the Christmas break, although you need to learn one thing about your professors. We may or may not take a break. So we're very lucky to have a lot of flexibility in when we can do things and what, but it's not like we're off. We have a bunch of things we need to get done, just a matter of when. So I'm going to take a little time off here. But I'm not exactly off between now and the beginning of the next semester. I'm not complaining. This is awesome. All right. We're going to put supply and demand together here just to give you that last little push in the right direction of being comfortable with the model and picking it apart and thinking about it and taking notes when you read your book, taking notes when you watch a video, and again, get rid of that highlight marker, or at least save it for something else other than learning things. All right, so let's see, which side are we going to be on? Okay, there we go. Okay, there's our model, and so we've got the same numbers on there before. We've got our $15 price there, although it's not as prominent now because, as you might have guessed from the other two videos, wait a minute, Doc, the $15 doesn't produce the same quantity demanded as the same quantity supplied. Yeah, that's right. Remember the quantity supplied, it's kind of small there, it's 130. Okay, and then the quantity demanded, that was over here at price 15, that was 80. See, if that were to actually happen, if the price were at a level above, okay, well, let me say that a different way. If the price were at a level where the amount that the people want to buy is not the same as the amount that the sellers want to sell to them at that price, we have what's called a market surplus, and if the price is determined in the market, the price will fall, and you'll see here that it falls to 13 because at that price, the amount demanded would be 100 and the amount supplied would also be 100. Again, let me emphasize that again. Supply is that whole line, right, that's labeled supply. Demand is that whole line labeled demand. The quantity demanded or the quantity supplied is a point on that line, and of course each line has many points on it, and so each line connects many prices and quantity combinations into a line. All right, there's only one they have in common. We call that our market equilibrium price and quantity, right? Price of 13, quantity of 10 in this particular case. All right, so if the price is 13, the buyers want to buy 100. Oops, I did it again, wrong hand. Okay, buyers want to buy 100 tons per day, and the sellers are willing to sell 100 tons per day. The market clears, another term to keep in mind. Right? In other words, all that's put out there is taken, which is important because sellers can't be putting stuff on the market just for grins and not making a sale for very long, right? So if it just sits there, they won't make as many the next time. Okay? And likewise, the buyers are not going to walk away empty-handed. As you know from finding the consumer surplus before, most of the buyers value the product at more than the price shown to them. And so if at the price shown, say the 15 in this case, they want to buy more than the sellers make available. I know that wasn't the case at 15, but if they would bid up the price, right? Because they'd say, look, I came here ready to buy this thing at 15, and well, there's nothing available at 15. Maybe if I offer a little bit more than 15, some will be forthcoming. And see, that's what I mean. The competition will bid up the price. If the price happens to be below the equilibrium, which in this case is 13, say at $10, right? Take a dotted line, draw that out to supply. You get a number, what, around 60, right? Oops, my fingers are in the way. Take it out from 10 out to the supply line. Down here, you get, getting that mirror effect again down to about 60. And if you take that 10 all the way out to the demand line, you get a number probably in the vicinity of the 130. That was the amount supplied at 15. Okay, so we'd have a shortage. Quantity demanded, frustrated buyers. Quantity demanded more than the quantity available to them. You can't buy more than is available to you, but you can get mad and offer to pay more, or be upset that the seller didn't provide as much as people wanted to buy at the advertised price. Right? You've had that happen before, right? Pick up the ad, look at it, ooh, good price, run down, buy it. It's already all sold out. Hey, how come you enticed me in here? they'll think, maybe they won't say, they'll think exactly. We got you into the store, and maybe before you leave, hopefully not too mad because you didn't get the product that you came in for. Maybe you'll still buy some other stuff, right? Because your time has an opportunity cost, right? Now that you've made the trip to the store, now that you're in here, everything is cheaper in a time sense than if you go back home and then buy any of those products from scratch, traveling, right? Shopping, finding information, all the things you do to decide how to spend your precious earnings. You won't, it'll feel more expensive. All right. Rub my nose, itch. All right. So the $15 price that we've operated on in the first two Moment of Truth videos, one for demand and one for supply. I hope you watch those, because otherwise, see, this is going to be the first lesson in, what's all this alphabet soup? Or what's all these? I thought I could just go straight to Moment of Truth market and never mind all that that Moment of Truth supply or demand. Just go where they're combined. See, this will be your first case where you go, what on earth is going on here? What's all these lines and tons per day and dollars per ton? And Merrifield's trying to be cute with concrete examples. Yeah, I am. Trying to have fun. Fun never ends unless you let it. It's possible to have serious academics with sense of humor. I'm going to try. Life is too short not to enjoy all of it, including the work part. Okay, so the price will fall down until the quantity demanded increases and the quantity supplied decreases to where they'll meet, which they do in this case at $13. So now the total revenue, price times quantity, remember that from the demand video, 13 times 10, $1,300, right? Total value is consumer surplus plus total revenue. Okay, so you find the consumer surplus at a price of 13. That's 23 minus 13, right? Demand minus price is consumer surplus. 23 minus 13 is 10. 10 times 100 is 1,000. Divide by 2. Don't forget that. One of the wrong answers on the test is always if you forget divide by 2. Right? So 23 minus 13 is 10. 10 times 100. Right? Is that consumer surplus triangle up here. Okay? Not with 15 at the bottom now. Now the price is 13. Okay? So 10 times 100 is 1,000. Divided by 2 is 500. 500 consumer surplus plus 1,300. No, divide by 2 and the total revenue, right? The total revenue is this whole area here, 13, okay, times 100. Right? It's not a right triangle, it's a rectangle. Okay, total revenue is 1,300, 13 times 100. Consumer surplus is that triangle, 23 minus 13 times 100 divided by 2, 500. So the total value is what? 500 plus 1,300, 1,800. Okay, and out of the 1,300, 400 is producer surplus. Producer surplus price 13 minus supply up to 100. Okay, up to the quantity 100. Right, this triangle right there. 13 minus 5 is 8. 8 times 100. The other dimension of the triangle is 800. Divided by 2 is 400. Okay, so talk your way through all the numbers. Of the $1,300 total revenue, okay, to the seller collects the money. 400 is left over after covering opportunity costs, right? Consumer surplus. Now, got to be a little bit careful here because the supply line only reflects the incremental opportunity costs. Okay, so the 400 isn't exactly the same thing as profit. The seller will have to cover fixed costs, okay, overhead, as businesses call it, from that 400. Okay, but 400 is left over from the decision to produce 0 versus producing 100. Okay, by producing 100 instead of 0, they have a gain from trade of $400. 13 minus 5 times 100 divided by 2. All right, so there you have it. Okay, supply separately, demand separately, and then put them together, and we learn if the price that we had in the first two examples was an equilibrium price, okay, and 15, no, that wasn't an equilibrium price. Quantity demanded and quantity supplied were not the same. By the way, when they're not the same, the smaller of the two is the amount actually purchased. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the that means that the equilibrium, in this case 100, quantity of 100, maximizes the gain from trade. For any price other than 13, the amount actually purchased will be less than 100. Right? So for example, if the price is 15, the buyers want to buy 80, and it doesn't matter the fact that sellers want to sell them 130, they're only going to buy 80 at that price. Okay, so some of the gains from trade, the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus, will be lost. There'll be a little bitty what's called a deadweight loss. And likewise, if the price is 10, the fact that the producer will want to sell about 100, the fact that the consumers will want about 130, maybe draw a dotted line over from 10, and the producers will want to only sell 60, doesn't help that the consumers want more than 60. 60 is all that's going to be available. It's all that's going to sell. So the gains from trade between 60, where 10 goes to the supply line and then goes down to 60, the gains from trade from there over to where the lines intersect, those gains from trade, some consumer surplus, some producer surplus, will be foregone or lost, like sitting on the table and you left it there. Okay, and that brings us to the last point of this sort of introductory video. A lot of these things about deadweight loss, have I used that term yet? Well, I'm gonna. Gains from trade, we'll use those a lot. This is an introduction to them, and I deliberately threw all those at you, because you have no chance of understanding them throughout the semester unless you do the basics in these graphs to understand what these lines and the points on the lines are all about. That's the main point here. Disassemble the demand line. Find all the things you can learn from a demand line: consumer surplus, total revenue, total value, incremental value, how many you can give away, what's the most anybody will be willing to pay, all that from the demand line. Once you're solid there, you're ready to get into some of that other stuff. Okay? But I'm going to toss it at you anyway to kind of let you know what's coming. And who knows, you may be fast. You may say, wow, we're going to go spend several more weeks learning all that other stuff. I get it right now. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Why don't we practice with it a little bit? But, hopefully you do get it all already. If not, hang in there. You will, as long as you're getting after these models and not in la-la land where you're pretending you're going to memorize something you don't understand. Not going to happen. Okay, so let me pull up some cards here so they'll save you writing alphabet soup down. Well, you probably have to write it down, but at least it'll be on the video for you to freeze and copy. Okay, so what I was just saying, the equilibrium maximizes the gain from trade, typically. Okay, now, what it says up there, when MSC is equal to MPC and MSB, there's that alphabet soup. When that's true, the equilibrium, and that almost always is the truth, right? So the equilibrium typically does maximize GFT. What's that? Gains from trade. What's GFT? Consumer surplus plus producer surplus plus sometimes it has to include tax revenue because, we've got to tax something, so part of the gain from trade has to be taxed away and become property of the government to pay for soldiers and firemen and entitlements, all the things that the government does. Okay, so the equilibrium maximizes the gain from trade unless one of those two conditions at the top, that's that externality thing, is not met. Okay, but typically both these conditions are met. Marginal social cost typically is the same as marginal private cost. By the way, that is what yields the equilibrium. Equilibrium typically results from people pursuing self-interest, and that means that MPB is equal to MPC, characterizes equilibrium outcomes. Optimum is MSC equals MSB. Okay, so when MSC is equal to MPC and MSB is equal, then MPC is equal to MPB and MSC is equal to MSB, and the equilibrium is equal to the optimum. Was that enough alphabet soup for you? Yeah, good. See, now you can freeze that. Later on, you can go, whoa, hold on there. Oh, whoa. I think I get that. Okay. What's marginal social cost? The total opportunity cost, right? Which could sometimes be more than just what's private. Okay. What's marginal social benefit? Well, that's like the benefit to everybody when that's more than just the benefit to you from something you decide to do. For most things that you decide to do, you get all the benefit. All right. So What if the equilibrium is not the optimum? Well, then we can flip the card over and we can talk about that dead weight loss thing that I just blurted out a minute ago. When a market outcome, the equilibrium, differs from the optimum, the foregone gain from trade is called a dead weight loss. Okay? In other words, when the outcome is different than where MSB is equal to MSB, where the lines intersect, the key lines. Remember, so far MSB and MPB has been the same, and so is MSC and MPC, no difference so far. But when they do differ, the optimum will differ from the market outcome, and there will be some foregone gain from trade, and that calls sometimes for a government fix. And until the government fix kicks in, if there is one, we have what's called a DWL, not DWI, dead weight loss. And there it is. All dead weight losses are the same. See my little tag there? I ran out of space before writing down the whole expression. A dead weight loss, like a consumer surplus, like a producer surplus, is typically a triangle. So there's your two sides of the triangle, the marginal social benefit minus the marginal social cost at the equilibrium. Okay, that's what will give you a dead weight loss, is when those differ at the equilibrium. And then the other thing where I have my little tag here, that's Q star, the optimum, minus the equilibrium, okay, where you are versus where you should be. Okay, and then because it's a triangle, you have your divide by 2 thing again there, and then at the bottom where my knuckle is covering, I'm defining what the word DWL means. It means dead weight loss. All right. Now, to the extent that you're looking at some of this and going, that might mean you need to make a little reminder to yourself to go back to this video later on. Sure, maybe when I introduce it in class, or if you're seeing this video as part of an online class, when it comes up in one of the readings, it'll be explained again there. But that may not get it, and there may not be any other source available. Of course, you can always go on the online forum and ask, or if this is for a regular class, ask in class. But you can also always go back to this video, and at the end of this one, moment of truth - market for this particular video, all dead weight losses are computed by this formula. The base times the height divided by 2 will give you the dollars, in this case, back to my graph, the dollars per day, okay, foregone gains from trade. Okay, there it is one more time. And let me flash the last thing on there one more time so you don't have to rewind the video to look at it. When all the costs, I'm doing translation to conclude this video. When all the costs are on the decision maker, when MSC, marginal social cost, equals marginal cost, and when all the benefits accrue to the member of society that made the decision, that yielded those benefits, MSP equals MPB, then the market equilibrium maximizes the gain from trade. And then the equilibrium is the optimum, and the equilibrium yields no dead weight loss. The dead weight loss results when the optimum isn't the equilibrium. Alrighty then. Remember, the fun never ends unless you let it. We're going to put supply and demand together here, just to give you that last little push in the right direction of being comfortable with the model and picking it apart and thinking about it and taking notes when you read your book, taking notes when you watch a video, and again, get rid of that highlight marker, or at least save it for something else other than learning things. All right, so let's see, which side are we going to be on? Okay, there we go. Okay, there's our model, and so we've got the same numbers on there before. We've got our $15 price there, although it's not as prominent now because, as you might have guessed from the other 2 videos, wait a minute, Doc, the $15 doesn't produce the same quantity demanded as the same. All right, I'm back. I'm leaning back for a second just so you can see my smiley face tie. I'm recording this just before the Christmas break, although you need to learn one thing about your professors. We may or may not take a break. So we're very lucky to have a lot of flexibility in when we can do things and what. But it's not like we're off. We have a bunch of things we need to get done, just a matter of when. So I'm going to take a little time off here. But I'm not exactly off between now and the beginning of the next semester. I'm not complaining. This is awesome. All right. It would also be 100. Again, let me emphasize that again. Supply is that whole line, right, that's labeled supply. Demand is that whole line labeled demand. The quantity demanded or the quantity supplied is a point on that line. And of course, each line has many points on it, and so each line connects many prices and quantity combinations into a line. All right, there's only one they have in common. We call that our market equilibrium price and quantity, right? Price of 13, quantity of 10 in this particular case. All right, so if the price is 13, the buyers want to buy 100. Oops, I did it again, wrong hand. Quantity supplied, yeah, that's right. Remember the quantity supplied, it's kind of small there, it's 130. Okay, and then the quantity demanded, that was over here at price 15, that was 80. See, if that were to actually happen, if the price were at a level above, okay, well, let me say that a different way. If the price were at a level where the amount that the people want to buy is not the same as the amount that the sellers want to sell to them at that price, we have what's called a market surplus, and if the price is determined in the market, the price will fall, and you'll see here that it falls to 13 because at that price, the amount demanded would be 100 and the amount supplied. Okay, buyers want to buy 100 tons per day, and the sellers are willing to sell 100 tons per day. The market clears, another term to keep in mind. All right, in other words, all that's put out there is taken, which is important because sellers can't be putting stuff on the market just for grins and not making a sale for very long, right? So if it just sits there, they won't make as many the next time. Okay, and likewise, the buyers are not going to walk away empty-handed. As you know from finding the consumer surplus before, most of the buyers value the product at more than the price shown to them. And so if